Hey guys, thanks for checking out the MVP YouTube channel. This is Men's with Mark, where reason, logic, and science prevail, and bro logic goes to die. I'm your host, Mark Vinch. Well, while you're here, make sure you also like and subscribe to the page and turn your notifications on to get notified each time a new podcast episode gets posted. Stay tuned and enjoy. Hey, Tamika, it's an absolute pleasure to finally have you on the show. And I get to actually formally congratulate you on you earning your pro card. Congrats.
Thank you. I'm really glad to be on here today, and just being able to finally connect with you and like talk to you. So I'm really excited.
Same. And you also have some gave me some pretty cool news today. That you quit your corporate job.
Yes. For me, I've always like left corporate, went back. I've had my own business for a while. But I think like anyone else who has their own business, sometimes you stay with corporate because it's like the security of knowing you have that income coming in. But I'm at the point where it's like, okay, I just really need to take the leap and just let corporate go and let the stress go and just focus on the things that serve me. So yeah, today was my last day, sending off my equipment tonight. So it's real. It's going to probably hit me tomorrow when I wake up and I don't have to start my day on the computer.
I love that for you. That is absolutely excellent. That's a dream, right? Everyone wants to just work for themselves at the end of the day. Now,
Correct.
You have had a really interesting journey. And when I found out where you started from and actually how short your journey was, I was kind of mind blown. So take me back. I think it was 2020. You were still a cheerleader with the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah. So that journey was like wild. So to how I ended up in Green Bay to start, before all that even happened, I was getting into grad school. So I just got accepted at the University of Wisconsin Green Bay. And fun fact, I had never went to an NFL game prior to becoming a cheerleader. So my first experience on the field and at a game was literally my first ever experience at an NFL game. So I ended up trying out that year. This was like around COVID time, so things were a little iffy. We didn't know if they were actually going to keep the cheerleaders or not. So I tried out. I didn't think I'd make the team. I was a track and field athlete prior to this, but I was a dancer and a cheerleader prior to being a track and field athlete. So for me, it was like I had the experience, but I hadn't cheered in like 3 years. So I'm like, okay, I don't think I'm going to make it, but let's just try out and see.
Yeah, right.
Freaking made it and was like in shock for a while and like literally just couldn't believe it because you got to meet players, you got to meet all these people, all these important people, you know, so it was like a great experience, but like it was so surreal. Like still to this day, when people bring it up, it's kind of like, yeah, I keep forgetting. I'm doing so much. I keep forgetting I cheered for the Packers, but it was short lived. It was only for like a year. Then COVID kind of took over again and they got rid of their cheerleaders completely. And then that's when I relocated to Chicago and then bodybuilding took over from there.
So I think it was your sister you said got you initially into bodybuilding, right?
Yeah. So my sister Shannon, we both actually won our pro cards at nationals together. So she was in the class before me.
That by itself was fucking nuts too. You're both figure competitors as well.
Yes. And so it was weird because I was a wellness competitor. So I started competing last year. That was my first year competing in February. I started my first prep in February. I competed in wellness at the Chicago Extravaganza, the Chicago Pro. Ended up getting second in wellness, but it was technically last because it was just me and another girl. So like I was defeated. I was so defeated because I'm like, I know I don't look horrible, but like, damn, last, you know, like my first show, like usually people like in their head, they're like, well, I'm gonna win my local show and then go to a national show. And that's when it's like, I kind of prepare to either win or lose, you know? So then at Chicago Pro Extravaganza, I got second. Which was pretty much last. And then pretty much at that point, I like started my bodybuilding career kind of like, I don't know if I'm going to like this. Cause I'm like, I'm used to like when you're an athlete all your life, right? You're used to, and you're good, you're used to winning. So like, to me, it's like that first loss, I'm like, oh, bodybuilding's not for me. Cause like, I was like, I just can't handle this. But like, I didn't really understand the sport. Like, I don't think at the time I understood what bodybuilding really was about. So my coach is like, well, I had USA's literally the week after that. So like I was defeated going into USA's and I'm like, I literally kind of didn't even want to compete because I was like, I was like, at this point, either my conditioning, something, they didn't like it. I'm like, something, they don't like something. So it was going to be the same judges at USA's. And I'm like, it's just going to be bad. Well, ran myself into the ground pretty much that whole week. And if anything, I feel like that made me not want to do bodybuilding even more, because I basically like personally killed myself that week. Like, did a bunch of cardio because I just again didn't understand bodybuilding. So in my head, I'm like, I got a week to basically try to type. You know, it's like you can't do crap anyway. It's like nothing can change in a week.
Yeah.
But again, I clearly didn't understand bodybuilding. He didn't understand much about the process. So my coach just kind of was just like, let her do her cardio, let her do whatever she thinks to mentally prepare herself to go to USA. I ended up getting first call out to my class. There was like 20 girls in my class. I ended up placing fifth. So I didn't do horrible. And again, everyone's like, Tamika, that's like actually good. And again, I didn't understand bodybuilding. So in my head, I'm like, if it's not first, it's bad.
Yes.
So I was still like, in my head, I'm like, it's better than Chicago Pro or Chicago Extravaganza, but I'm still not happy. I'm like, I know I have the potential to be good at this sport if I really just get it together. So I ended up talking to my coach, Dave from Underrated Muscle, and he was just like, you just did a long prep, because at that point it was like February was when I started prep. I think USA's was either in July, June or July. I don't remember when it was. Honestly, last year was such a blur towards the end.
Yeah, I think it's July.
Yeah, and so from there it was like nationals we knew was going to be in December. So he's like, if you want to keep competing, you're like qualified at this point for nationals. He's like, but I'm just telling you now, that's a long prep all over again. Like, you're going to be waiting to go back into prep and do it all over again. So I told him, I'm like, listen, that just puts me ahead of the game. So at this point, like, let's just start from today on out. I'm going to just stay in prep until December. And I went crazy. Like, I think something switched in me where it was like, you don't lose. Like, because the athlete in you is like, I like to win. So something in me just took over. I like was training. I was doing my cardio. I was eating. When I tell you I follow my plan to the Q, and it was to the point where I think I was like 4 or 5 weeks out, and my coach is like, "You look like a figure or women's physique competitor at this point." He's like, "Wellness, he's like, you can still do wellness, but he's like, but your shoulders, like he's like, in your back, he's like, there's like you have to do figure and wellness." So I never practiced figure posing or anything. You have to understand, I'm like, at this point, I was delusional. I think it was like November. It was like the beginning of November. I was delusional, to be honest.
Like 4 weeks out from nationals, you're switching classes, and you've never practiced posing for his class.
Never. And then also just new to bodybuilding in general. So this is like my third show. It's going to be a huge show in Texas. And I'm basically, all I knew is I had a suit sponsor. At least I knew I had a nice suit. I knew I could do my own hair, and I knew I had someone to do my makeup. So at that point, I'm like, I have the essentials. But at this point, it's like, I don't know how to pose or anything. So I think I had one posing session with one of my teammates, and it was virtual. And again, I'm someone when I'm first learning something, I need physical in person, show me the ropes. So she did the best she could. But again, I'm someone who needs in person. And somehow I still made it work. Like, and even at nationals, people were like, I would have never guessed you didn't know posing.
I watched the live. When he told me that, I was like, what the fuck? No way. Well, like, that's also like the dancer and cheerleader, like the skill from that, like those things definitely roll over from like a stage presence perspective. That like someone like myself who didn't do stuff like that, like I was a lacrosse player and I wrestled, like those skills don't roll over to anything in our sport.
Yeah, no. So people told me, they're like, I think you just handled it so well because you were used to like, and I tell people in like another podcast I was in, I really attribute me being comfortable on stage, even with me not knowing anything that I was doing up there, to me cheering in front of 80 to almost 90,000 people like every Sunday or Tuesday. Like, I was like, if I could do that, if I'm dancing in front of all these people, like drunk guys, all these women, like all these people, what is going to be the difference of me posing in front of maybe 400, 500 people in the stands and 5 judges at a table? What's going to be the difference?
Exactly.
So I just told myself, I'm like, as long as you just smile and do the basics, because I was telling my teammate, I'm like, I see all these girls, they have these routines, and like, I don't know how to do any of this arm, because you know, like it's figure and wellness, it's like arm frailing and all this, and I'm like, I don't know how to do any of this. And my teammate Michaela is like, as long as you do a front pose, a side pose, a back pose, and just transition into it, it's going to turn into a routine. You'll be fine. So when I tell you, when I went up there for figure and walked on stage, it was like any routine I did have in my head was out the window. It's like as soon as I walked up there, I just was like, smile and just do what you can. And like I just remember looking at all the judges, like I was staring dead at them, and like some of them were smiling and like, but it was funny because you could tell they were like, didn't this girl just do wellness? Because I did wellness right before figure. But I pumped up really well backstage, so I look like two different people. If you look at my stage shots from wellness to figure,
I did. Well, I was so confused how you hid your fucking lats. Mm-hmm. I was like, did you like roll the, like what? Mm.
I told myself I would use my hair the best I could for wellness, but to be honest, I just didn't pump up. All I did was like I did a little bit of leg pump up, like to try to get my glutes to show a little.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I didn't do anything with my arms because I already knew my arms were going to be cut up just from them being cut up. So I was like, if I pump up my arms or shoulders, my freaking lats are going to be looking crazy on stage for wellness. So I was like, I need to like my shoulders, all that's going to be looking bulgy. I can't do that. So I didn't even pump up upper body. I literally just did a little bit of leg stuff and went on stage for wellness. But when I got off stage, I had maybe 10 minutes to change my outfit, do the quickest 3-minute pump up back there and get my tan and suit glued. Because for figure, you have to get your suit glued. Yeah. Then I had a suit malfunction. So my suit actually broke. They had to tie it to like keep. Yeah, when I tell you, for me to have been that calm backstage and like laughing with girls and joking and like actually having a good time at nationals, I had so many chaotic moments happen back there that I felt like someone would have cried. If it was someone else that wasn't me, they would have cried.
Well, like luckily your optimism definitely like let you hold your composure, because like in reality the outcome for the whole day could have been different, specifically if your mindset was different as well.
Yes. And so, but for me, I think my mindset going in, I just knew I gave 100% and more. Like that prep, I knew my coach, I think I was like, what, 2 or 3 weeks out, and I did a photo shoot. And my coach is like, you look so insane right now. He's like, and the fact that we still have 3 more weeks, he's like, he was really excited. And I was excited too, because I'm like, my biggest fear is when I'm like always scared to send my coach check-ins. My biggest fear is him like texting me like, you're not looking good, or like what happened. Yeah. I would hate for him to say that to me. And like, he knows how I am. So to know every check-in, once I hit like 6 weeks out, it was like, oh, it's looking even better. Or it was like always something positive. I think that's what kept me going too. Cause it was like, I'm on track. We're doing good. Now when
you like feel his excitement.
Yeah. And like, I'm the type, I feed off of positivity. Like, and I think, again, that reverts back to my career choices and the things I do in life, because if something's constantly negative, I can't handle it. It's not for me. I'm someone who I radiate positivity, and I want to experience positivity in my day-to-day life. No one thrives off negativity. So I'm quick to dismiss something if it's not bringing positivity or some type of like positive light to a situation. I can't. I usually try to change it or at least dismiss it.
Absolutely. So it was your third show. You stepped on stage, competed in 2 different divisions. You did wellness and figure, and you walked away with a 5th in wellness?
And 5th in wellness.
And well, 1st in figure, right?
Yeah, 1st in figure. And it was crazy because me and my coach, he was trying to prepare me. He's like, hey, the judges know you're doing 2 categories at this point. He's like, you got to be prepared to either do really horrible in one category or do really good in the other. And so I was preparing. I'm like, if wellness doesn't go well, then that means I'm not going to do, or that means I'm going to probably do better in figure. Yeah. But if wellness goes well, that means I don't know what's going to happen with figure. Like after wellness, when I realized I at least got first call outs, I was like, okay, at least I'm first call outs. And it's like even at USA's, I was 5th. And then at nationals, I was 5th. So it's like, I always knew the reason why. Like Sandy told me, she's like, if your shoulders grow anymore, you can't do wellness anymore. She even told me, she's like, naturally, genetically, you just have nice shoulders and like a nice back and like shape. She's like, if you keep growing up there, you might as well just walk over to figure. So when she saw me, I feel like when she saw me at nationals, it was like she finally freaking switched over to figure. it just seeing like them smiling, like seeing the judges smile, like, okay, she's finally figuring it out, like where she needs to be. Because for the longest, I knew deep down I was probably meant for figure, but like we just discussed, my sister's figure, and we compete together. We always do shows together, so I never wanted to compete against my sister. Like we're both competitive people. We both ran track. We both cheered. We're like both very competitive. So the moment we were like 5 weeks out and I had to tell her I was doing figure, we went from talking every day and like to ask each other how we're feeling. So you could tell it was kind of competitive to where it was like, we weren't sending each other our check-ins really anymore. We used to send each other our check-ins, like, how's it going?
I'm dead.
Yeah. So you could tell it was like friendly a competition, but you could tell towards the end, we were both like, because we didn't know if we were going to be me and her almost the same height. So we were prepared to even be in the same class at that point. So I think we both
ended up not being heighted the same, right?
Nope. I think we missed it by like 2 girls or 1 girl. I would have been in her class if like 2 girls wouldn't have showed up. And so for me, I was happy because at that point, I'm like, we both have a chance to win our pro cards. Yes. And how cool would that be if we both like were lined up for the overall? And then it freaking happened, and we were right next to each other for the overall. Like we were right next to each other, and like I told her I was in shock because she was dead center for her class. She was class E, I was class F, and it was between me and another girl, Brittany Tibbetts, and she looked awesome. Like literally in my head, I'm like, if I lose to her, I completely understand. She looked great. I'm like, she has shape, she looks good. So I kept telling my coach, like, I wouldn't be upset because I'm still gonna get my pro card if I get second, but I wouldn't be upset if I lost either because my class had some great looking women. So I'm like, it makes sense. So when I won, I think it didn't really hit me until like they called her for second, and I kind of sat there like, wait, I just won. So I'm taking pictures and I'm walking off, and my sister's waiting for me because she won before me. So she's like, yeah, let's go. We put your awards down. We got to line back up for the overall. And I'm like in shock. I'm like still standing here like, I just won. And she's like, Tamika, we have to go back on stage. What are you doing? So people are laughing at us because clearly we're like backstage just cracking people up because we're like, I'm in shock. You can tell she's trying to get me back on stage.
Yeah.
And we ended up literally right next to each other on stage. So imagine like us quarter turning and all this. And I quarter turn and I'm looking dead at my sister like right in front of me. It was just a surreal moment. And like I told her, I would never forget nationals because like it was we prayed for that moment. Like we were determined to win our pro cards. Like I told her, if I don't win it in figure, I want to win it in wellness or whatever.
Absolutely.
So when we actually won, it was just like, wow, like we really did it.
It truly is like, what are the actual odds that you and your sister both win your classes and then get put next to each other in the overall? Like that whole experience is probably burnt into your memory forever.
Because it's like, I look back and I'm like, one day I'll have to, one day I'll be able to tell my kids, like, yeah, me and your aunt, like, we're duking it out for the overall at a national show. Because it's like, and like, if you think futuristic, it's like, we don't know what my bodybuilding career is going to end up being like. So imagine, like, I'm like, yeah, when I first started, me and your aunt, this and this, and now, and then I went here and did this and this. So it's like, I'm excited because I know I've only been bodybuilding for a year and some change now, right?
Yes.
And I'm someone who, even though I'm considered a pro, I still feel like I'm a newbie. Like, I still feel like I'm one person to say I would never feel like I can tell someone what they should be doing or shouldn't be doing in the sport because I am still learning. So I feel like I will never be that person unless I win an Olympia or something. Then I feel like you're qualified to say that if you're going to the Olympia. But like when you're a new pro, I feel like you really got to work your way up the ropes and like you got to earn the ability to say like, oh, you should work on this or this and that. So absolutely. I'm a newbie, and I think just being an athlete in the past and being a newbie then and working my way up in sports, like that's prepared me for this because now I'm like, I think, me being back in prep, I'm like 12 weeks out right now from Chicago Pro. And I'm not even nervous. I'm still not nervous like about the bodybuilding aspect because to me, this is like a hobby that I enjoy. And I know for some people, this is like their life. Like some people, they're like, bodybuilding is my life, and they're stressed sometimes. And I'm like, to me, this is fun. This is the fun part of my life. Like my corporate job, my business, that's the stressful stuff.
Yes.
I enjoy going to the gym every night and like, kind of dying, but knowing I'm going to look great in like a few weeks,
Exactly.
So I enjoy bodybuilding. I'm excited for my pro debut. I feel like especially because you have me on social media, you see me post every like on my story. I'm like, I'm so excited for my pro debut, and like there are people that are like freaking out right now, and I'm like, I'm so excited.
No, I'm so excited to see it too, because especially in reality, like until what, again, 4 weeks before your actual national show, you didn't know what class you ended up competing in, right? And now you've been specifically training to fit into one specific class. So I'm excited to see how your physique's going to look, having a whole prep specifically designed for that look.
I know, me too, because I think my judges' feedback from nationals was they thought the size was fine. They're like, you have the size. We think you could compete at a pro level if you wanted to starting next year. They're like, the only thing is coming a little bit more conditioned from the back, which I wasn't completely because I was doing wellness, so I didn't want to be too cut up from behind. But then also I was on my cycle and I hold a lot of water on my cycle. So people didn't know this, but I actually started my cycle the day of nationals. And I'm the type, I hold a lot of water on my cycle. So I was freaking out. I thought I was going to look like a water buffalo up there by the time we actually got on stage. Yeah. So I was shocked I was able to contain some of that water out, because I'm the type to ask my coach, I'll hold like 10 pounds of water on my cycle.
That is nuts. Well, it's nuts because I would have no idea looking at your photos. Absolutely no idea.
I'm glad.
Hell yeah, dude. Hell yeah. So first pro show on the calendar. We're super excited. Do you have something else picked out after that, or just all eggs in the Chicago Pro basket?
So it's weird. Like if I end up coming in sooner than Chicago Pro, because it's weird. Every other week, I feel like my body, like every couple of days, I feel like my body looks different. Like my arms are starting to get more cut up now. Like it's weird. Like I swear, like last week, I felt like I didn't look good, and then this week, it's like things are starting to pop now, and I'm like, okay, maybe I might be ready before Chicago Pro. So if I end up ready before Chicago Pro, we were thinking Georgia. And then after Chicago Pro, depending on how that goes, we were thinking Tampa Pro.
Okay.
And then I for sure want to do Texas Pro. That's like a show I for sure want to do. Absolutely. So those are like the 4 shows that I want to do this year. But my coach is also like, you're a new pro, you're getting a lot of publicity. He's like, you don't want to burn yourself out. Like, just see how the first 2 shows go, and if you want to keep going, then see how you feel. But he's like, you don't want to burn yourself out. So I'm also being smart. So we'll see how it goes. Those are the shows I want to do. Yes. Will I do all those shows? In the air, we don't know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's going to be really exciting. Really exciting.
I know. I'm excited. And like I said, even now, it's weird to say I'm a pro. Like, I think it really won't hit me until I go on stage as a pro.
I think so, too. Because especially, again, like, you've been in the sport for roughly, like, a year and a half.
Yeah. And, like, I've only been a pro now for what, like 4 months at this point?
Yep.
So, like, it hasn't even hit me. So, like, I'm going to be basically competing here in the next, like, 3-ish months. So it's just weird. Like my coach said, he's like, it's definitely going to hit you when you go backstage. He's like, because you're going to realize everyone looks cut up and great. It won't be like nationals where some people you don't know, you know? He's like, no, when you get there, you're going to be like, crap, like, we don't know how I'm going to do.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. Everyone's on that next level. Like, everyone's there.
Yeah, so I'm excited. I think I'm the type, instead of getting nervous, I'm really outgoing. I'm the opposite. Like, if I'm nervous, I'm usually more talkative and like wanting to get to know people. So I think backstage has always been fun for me because you got girls that are nervous that want to talk too. So then you end up talking and making friends. And to be honest, nationals, I made like 15 girlfriends backstage. Like, I still talk to them now.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited for that. But then again, you know, at the pro level, you don't know how girls are backstage. So, you know, they might be nice. You know,
who knows, right? There's money on the line now, so it might be a little different.
Yeah, that's another thing. I'm like, now that I can get some money, I'm definitely going to give my all.
Right? Why not?
Yeah.
Hell yeah, dude. Hell yeah. How about your sister? Does she have anything planned for this year?
Yeah, so me and her have 2 different body types, as you can tell.
Yeah.
So we kind of have 2 different protocols, like, regarding our preps right now. Like, I put on more size. I put on a little bit more size, especially in my upper body. I definitely put on some mass in my arms. But for her, our coach really wanted her to gain like 10 to 15 pounds of muscle. And her body shape kind of, like, it's funny. I always compare, it's like, I feel like my body, I compare myself to like a Jessica or, you know what I'm saying? And then Shannon, we always compare her to someone like Sid because she's like a smaller body build. Yeah. And so like, for me, it's like I'm someone who could borderline, if I put on a little bit more muscle, could probably do women's physique down the line.
Yeah, your muscle bellies are really round. They absolutely are.
So like we always joke about that, and like her, it's like I've never had problems with gaining mass. Like gaining muscle has never been a problem for me. For her, it's always been hard for her to put on a lot of size. So right now she's in bulk, and she's very uncomfortable because we're not women that like to look big, like unless we're strong, big looking. And I think she's thinking about doing Fort Lauderdale as her show. So she's gonna compete this year, but later in the year, I think in like September.
Hell yeah. Yeah, we all wish we had that problem of just growing too fast for no reason. Everyone needs some of the Tucker genetics. Who's watching this? You can bottle it. You can sell it online, please.
Listen, if I could sell it, I would. Because listen, it's weird. I didn't intentionally grow. So to be honest, my goal wasn't to do figure last year.
Yeah.
I somehow my body just put on the size, and then my coach is like, you have to do another category. This is crazy. Yeah. So it was cool to know I could put on size and not even be in a bulk. Like I put on size not even in a bulk. I was in prep. So he was like, knowing you could put on mass and not even be in a bulk is crazy.
And this is why like genetics is one of the biggest variables in our sport, because like we're talking about the fact that in a caloric deficit, your body still partition enough nutrients to muscles to make more tissue, right?
Yeah. And it's crazy because like physically that's not supposed to happen, like scientifically.
Normally you have to be blasting gear out the wazoo for that to happen in a prep.
And like, to be honest, like even my last prep, I wasn't even on like gear like that. I think we had just experimented, with gear. Yeah. So like for me, it was like, when I tell people like my, gear and dosages and stuff, they're like, you're all genetics. They're like, you weren't on anything. They're like, literally compared to some women, you're on nothing.
Yeah, I remember when you told me about it, I was like, wow, that's it. that's like a Tic Tac dosage equivalent.
Yeah. And in my head, I'm freaking out because I'm like, it was clearly my first time trying anything. So I'm like, oh my God, what is this going to do to me? And people are like, you weren't even on anything to like even feel anything.
Yeah, the definition of a hyper responder over here. We are Phil Heath equivalent figure now.
But no, so I love bodybuilding. Honestly, I've met some great people. I always wondered what my next sport was going to be, because clearly I knew like after track and field, I knew I wanted to be done after collegiate, and then the NFL cheer. Like it's like, of course I could have kept cheering for other teams. But it's like, it's not really a sport per se. Some women will say it is, but it's not, to me, it's like, I'm used to like competitive sports, like basketball, track and field, those type of sports. So to me, it's like, I wouldn't consider cheer sport, especially professional cheer, because a lot of it is us in like cute little outfits and we're dancing, depending on whatever team you're on, you're really just dancing. You're not doing anything too acrobatic. Half the time you can't stunt. A lot of the teams, they took stunting away. So really at that point, I didn't feel like we were a sport for sure. Yeah. So I was like, I always wondered like, okay, what's going to be my next thing? Like, what am I going to do? So when bodybuilding fell in my lap, again, like when it started, I'm like, oh, this ain't for me, because I was doing crappy. Mm-hmm. But then once I met people, once I talked to judges and learned about the sport, once I like asked my coach hundreds of questions, and shockingly, he didn't get annoyed with me. Like, I was like, I actually love this. Like, I actually like this. Like, I like the science behind it. Most athletes like just the look, but I'm like, I like knowing like if I do A, B, and C, this will give me the D. And if I do A and B, then C is going to work out. Like, I'm one of those people. Like, because it's like, yeah, of course you can look good, but if you don't understand the mechanics behind it, it's like, do you really understand why you're losing this much weight? Or like even peak week was wild to me. The fact that I lost like 10 pounds of water weight, I couldn't believe it. I was like, how is this happening? Right. And it's like your water depleting and stuff like that. So it's like, looking at the science behind it, it's like during peak week, if one thing goes wrong, that's going to ruin everything.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's so much more that goes into the sport, and on the very surface level, everyone looks at it as this sport's probably very vain, and then looking at people being very obsessive and looking at the drug usage. But like when you look in deeper, it's more so like very self-reflective. It's a discipline-based sport. It's about like putting off like instant gratification, waiting for an end result. there's so much deeper things that you get out of the sport than the surface level stuff, and that's the more intriguing actual part of it. Like the impressive physique is also really cool, but all the other stuff is what makes it really beautiful.
That, and I agree, because before I got into bodybuilding, I was worried about the stereotypes behind it, right? Like I'm like, what are people like? People see me cut up, they're gonna be like, "Oh, this girl's just on like a bunch of drugs, or she's just doing like." I wanted the people that didn't know about bodybuilding to look at me and my journey and be like, "Okay, I watched this girl go from like a normal cheerleader body, super girly, to like the super cut up girl who's still feminine, but she's just cut up and has muscle."
Yeah.
And I think that was my biggest thing. Like, I want people to understand you can still be good looking and muscular. Like, I think the stigma behind women being too muscular and too masculine, it's like, I think I probably get hit on more now that I'm like cut up and in shape than I was super girly and like not as muscular.
Yeah.
And so to me, it's like, I want the stigma behind women bodybuilding to not just be like, oh, you're going to look like a man if you keep lifting. Like, I am like, I've never got that cut up in my life how I did for figure at nationals. And I was really scared about it because I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to look like. And I still look like myself, just a little more skeletal because I lost some body fat.
Absolutely.
But I still look like my normal self up there. And I'm like, so people need to, the stigma behind it's too much. It's really not. It's people like what they like and you don't like what you don't like. So it's like, if you don't like muscular women, then okay, whatever. But there are tons of people who do. So your opinion, you're one fish out of thousands of fish in the sea. It's not really going to matter to someone who is just excelling and doing their thing.
Absolutely. And like in most situations, more, I would say in 95 plus, lifting more weights and getting bigger helps most people's aesthetics in most situations.
Yes.
Like there's very little, like everyone looks better with bigger legs, men or women. Everyone looks better with bigger legs, right? Because your waist looks now smaller, right?
Yep.
Everyone looks better with a slightly wider back because your waist now looks smaller. Like all these things only accentuate parts of your body for the most part. Like, yeah, like maybe like if a chick's arms are bigger than mine, I'd feel a little weird about that. But like outside of that, like there is someone who loves that, right? So like,
yeah,
you can't yuck someone else's yum either when it comes to that.
And like that was one thing I feel like I got asked this the most while bodybuilding was like, has dating changed for me because of bodybuilding? And to be honest, not per se, because like I said, the same people that liked me before the bodybuilding still like me now. But it's like my preference now is different because if I'm super cut up or muscular or I'm a muscular woman, I feel like I personally can't see myself with someone who doesn't work out or who isn't fit. You know what I'm saying?
Understandably.
So if anything, my preference has changed. The people that liked me before still kind of like me. I think they're kind of more so in shock. They can't believe I look like this, like seeing me in person and seeing like muscle like this. Yeah. But like for the most part, if anything, I was the one who changed my preference because it's like I need to be with someone who can handle what people would consider the more masculine side of me now, because now I have all this muscle and when people think of muscle, they think masculine. They don't think, oh, feminine. When I think of muscle, I think feminine. So they're like, you need to be with someone more masculine than you, like at this point, which I agree. I can't be with someone who is not masculine or, you know, has that masculine energy because it's like, you're going to be intimidated by me anytime I show an arm, or if I'm working out with you at the gym, you're not going to be able to handle that. I need to be with someone who can lift more than me, probably pick me up. Like, I need something like that. So
you still want to feel like you still want to be Little Spoon. I still get it.
Yeah.
You want to be Little Spoon. Just because you're jacked now, you're not volunteering to be Big Spoon. I got it.
Yeah. And it's like, I mean, if I need to be Big Spoon every now and then, whatever. But it's like, I'm definitely like not trying to be the lead in the relationship. Like I need to be with someone who like sees my masculinity as not a challenge and is like, oh, you know, I can control this, you know.
Absolutely, and that's like obviously coming down to from like a more like masculinity concept, right? Like, and that's society-based thing right now, right? There's a little struggle with that.
Yes.
On because quote unquote sometimes it's toxic, right? But neither here nor there. But when it comes to sorry, I lost my train of thought. But going back to that, you now have like a new set standard, right? Because like you have probably a new daily routine that you didn't have before you got into weightlifting. So like if you're living with someone and you were waking up and going to the gym doing cardio, you would also want them to do that, right? Because like them sitting on the couch eating potato chips while you're doing that would be the biggest turnoff in the world, right?
Yes.
So like, it's all the new things that you are entwined into your day-to-day, you also want to see someone else do. So like your standard has drastically changed because who you are, the person, has changed. Even though bodybuilding is only your hobby, you now have a life built around bodybuilding.
I was gonna say it's crazy because to me it's a hobby, but realistically it's a lifestyle now. Because for me to maintain this hobby, I have to change my lifestyle habits to even make the hobby work.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, I'm not gonna lie, I am someone who I've always had a fast metabolism because I was a track and field athlete. So I could literally eat a whole pizza, still have a 6-pack, or eat McDonald's every day and be fine because I was burning so many calories every day. So getting into bodybuilding at first was hard. And to be honest, my sister was like, I didn't even think you really would commit to it like this because she knows how horrible I usually eat. Like she knows I'm like a big burger and fry girl. I love me some pizza. I love some ice cream. But where I'm at now, it's like I'll eat my cheat meals occasionally when I get it. And again, I still have good genetics and a good metabolism, so I can play myself more than the average person probably can.
Yeah.
But like you just said, when you wake up and you know you got to eat egg whites and oatmeal, you're not going to want to be dating someone or have a life partner that's eating potato chips and bullshit in the morning. And so for me, what I realized is like any person I did try to pursue once I started bodybuilding or anything like that, they really tried to adjust to my lifestyle because again, this is a lifestyle change. So if you can't handle the lifestyle I have with bodybuilding, you're not going to be able to handle me in a relationship or in your life to that extent anyway. So absolutely. I haven't had any problems with the people in my life. I think even my close family, like my parents are from the South, so I grew up on Southern food, hence like why I love eating bad when I can. And they're starting to really change up their lifestyles. Like my mom's always been a healthy eater, but like there's 3 sisters. So we have a middle sister, her name's Jacqueline. She's not into like the bodybuilding like us. She's more so she has her own business and you know, she has her own hair salon and she kind of does that. But she started eating healthier now. She's like doing her thing. She's working out now. And so like when you see people around you doing things that you know are good for them, it motivates you to want to do it.
Absolutely.
And that's what I want.
Yes. I love that. No, the sport definitely is contagious and people around you definitely make better decisions. Or they'll just say they'll make better decisions eventually. By watching you do it. And it's funny because like there's a trickle down effect and like you'll notice this even like at your place of work sometimes. If you eat at work, like when I worked in technology, I bring my food every day and I would eat like every 2 hours. So they'd always see me go into the microwave every 2 hours and get my desk. And they would always see that I brought my meals. People were like, oh, you don't eat out? I'm like, no, I don't eat out at all. I bring my meals. And then they'll see like, well, you eat way more food than me. And I was like, well, like it's the same calories than what your little thing over there is. And like, then they would all slowly adapt what they were doing, or they would bring some of their food and then eat out some of it, or make small little tweaks, or like the fact that I had a Fitbit and we'll go for walks like during lunch break, right? They would start going for walks and small little things like that. That is, it's always like cool to see because like, it's like, oh, wow, I'm actually making a difference, right?
Yeah. And it's funny you bring that up because when I did work in tech sales, I worked for a Fortune 500 company as a national business sales exec prior to the corporate role I had that I just left this week. I had to work in office for that job. So they got to witness me do exactly what you did, was go to the microwave every 2 to 3 hours making food. And it was hard though, because you have some people who support you and they are like, you got this, keep going. And then you have some people who are eating their crappy food and they're like, I don't know how like someone lives like this. Or like you have 2 different types of people. And it's like, you really got to motivate yourself to work corporate and try to do bodybuilding, because you're going to have people in corporate who are probably a little jealous that you look great and that you're disciplined because they can't do it. And then you're going to have people who are in corporate that wish they could do it and they're going to support you. And then eventually maybe even might, like you said, tweak some things, start adding healthier options. But I think that's why I said my last prep, I am really proud of myself for getting through it because I was dealing with like naysayers and corporate, like we'd have pizza parties and I'd be like eating my meal prep.
Too.
Traveling so much for work and like being told to go out to dinner with like partners and stuff. And it's like so hard to go to like partner dinners and you have to literally either bring meal prep or see if they can cook some chicken without, like, imagine.
Yeah, I've done it. It's terrible. It's terrible.
Horrible. So as much as it's like corporate's been a good foundation for me financially over the years, and I would never down it to that extent because it has helped me grow into the person I am and accomplish the skills that I have in business sales, medical sales, all the things I've done.
Yes.
But at the same time, it's like knowing now that I'm at home during the day and can literally go to my fridge and eat my meal prep in peace and plan out my morning cardio, my morning sauna, morning yoga, literally, and not have one person try to tell me that I'm crazy or that this, like, again, like I told you, I radiate off positivity. So I am in cloud nine right now. This week, if anything, I like probably lost 2 pounds of water weight since quitting my job, like, because I was so stressed out.
Beautiful. Fuck yeah. Beautiful. I love it. I absolutely love it.
So yeah, it's funny. It's like the little things I think about now that you even bring up some of the things with you. People don't realize what you go through as a bodybuilder around normal everyday people who don't look at working out as serious as you.
Oh, absolutely. And that's one of the things that like I always found like entertaining about like working in corporate was that because like I don't really have I realized this a fairly long time ago. I really don't associate with anyone who doesn't train. I really don't have one that's like that I talk to. I don't. And it wasn't by choice. It just like over time it happened that way. People would ask me to go out, to go drink and stuff. I would say no. So they eventually stopped talking to me. And the ones that asked me to go train legs, I kept talking to because we went and trained legs. So like they kept being my friends, right? So I really don't ever get to see the average American, right? So like I don't want to say I like people watching, but I definitely enjoy people watching. So being in a corporate lunchroom was like my experience of people watching. And it'd be hysterical because again, like you mentioned, Shannon would be eating her double cheeseburger and French fries, and she would point out that I have pink salt and that salting my food is bad for me. And then obviously knowing me, I cite a study to dismiss her. But that being said, it was always stuff like that. And I was like, you know what, Mark, just let it go. Just let it go. Because there's always people that want to say something. But like, it's funny because like you mentioned, there's always going to be the other people who support you and see the light in it. And like, I was very fortunate at my last job because my VP was someone who aspired to bodybuild in the 80s and didn't know what he was doing or whatever. And he never became who he wanted to be or whatever. So the fact that I was doing it, he thought was the coolest thing in the world. And like in the morning, he'd call me to his office like every Friday. I'm like, yo, can I see your check-in photos this week? And I'm like, oh yeah, cool. And I would show my check-in photos. And like he would ask like what I'm doing, and like he thought it was the coolest thing, and like he actually gave me more and more responsibility. He was like, "Oh, I know you're disciplined because you do all of this, so like here's more responsibility for this, this, and this." And I kept getting promoted so often, specifically because this one guy knew that this specific attribute of discipline was connected to this specific sport. So, hey, you could trust me, and in essence, led to my financial success in that specific field of technology sales. Specifically because the discipline I had from that one sport.
Yep. And I revert back to you even because like even before I started the job I'm leaving, they were like, we like the fact that you were a bodybuilder and you were an athlete because it showed you were disciplined. It showed like if she has the discipline to eat healthy and work out for 6 to 8 months or whatever, then she has the discipline to do her job, or she has the structure and discipline to do what needs to be done. So for me, it's like, I feel like bodybuilding has opened doors for me that like, in sports in general, because of the structure that comes along with it, the structure and sacrifice and determination you have to have.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And like, I think that's why, like, I'm so, like, if I ever have children, like, I'm so pro them playing a team sport as well as an individual sport. A team sport to learn how to work with people, and a individual sport to take personal responsibility, because you can never, if you win or lose with an individual sport, you have to own that. No one else was played but you, right?
Exactly. And I'm like so on that like wavelength with you. And I told myself I would do the same thing because your kids need to learn how to work in a team setting and also in an individual setting.
Mm.
And like I feel like that's one thing I'm really proud my parents instilled in me is like the ability to work not only as an individual, but you know, with the team and be a team player. Because I've worked in many roles where it's like again, the role I'm currently in that I was in, I work remote. I'm my own boss. I wake up every day and I work from home on my computer. There's no one literally physically telling me I need to be in the office by 8 or you need to be on your computer by 8. I had to basically get my own self up after doing cardio at 11 p.m. and not getting home to midnight, basically getting up, doing cardio again and getting on my work computer like nothing ever happened. So it's like you look at the things like you always think like, oh yeah, my parents raised me. But then you really kind of digest stuff as you get older. You're like, my parents really did do a good job because like I know some things.
It's funny that you said that because a few times a year I randomly message my mother and I thank her for instilling hard work into me all the time.
Oh.
And it's funny because it's always like out of the blue because like I'll realize like how much I have accomplished and I'll be like, fuck, I have really done a lot in a really short period of time.
Yeah.
And or like I'll have a couple weeks that like I was crazy busy and had a bunch of clients sign or whatever happened. And I'll be like, I don't think that an average person would have ever worked this much this week. And then I'll randomly text my mom because like my family were Italian immigrants. And when they came here, they created a business called J. Vinch and Sons Demolition, the demolition company. But it all started with my grandfather and a hammer and a truck. And in essence, knocking it with sledgehammer, taking down a building with a sledgehammer until it became a whole entire actual business. So my mothers and my uncles are all workaholics. Like it's all work, no play. That's literally how they all live. But my mother was also a single parent as well. So I watched her work extremely hard always. So like there was the one thing she always instilled with me was like, you just have to work hard. That's what it is. And like, granted, I pick up bodybuilding, which is all based off hard work. And then obviously being an entrepreneur, which requires you to work hard. I definitely have to thank her all the time because like it's how I live my life now is specifically because like my thought process of like what hard work is, like this is the minimum expectation, right?
Yeah. And that's how my mom is. She always told us to be independent and able to provide for ourselves. She's like, of course, one day you're all going to get married. You're going to have significant others. You know, you guys are going to coexist. And 9 times out of 10, she's like, most men love to lead. So down the line, you won't probably lead as much as you're leading on your own. But she's like, but I want you guys, if anything ever happens, to be able to like live on your own, know how to pay bills, have good credit. Like, and growing up, I've had a job since I was like 16, 15. And pretty much when I left for college, like my parents hadn't paid a bill for me since I was like 15.
That's beautiful.
So like, if anything, we're like trying to give back to our parents at this point, you know? So I'm just glad my parents raised me that way because in college, like I had 3 jobs. I was a track and field athlete on scholarship. Like my coaches were like threatening me. They're like, if you don't quit one of these jobs, we're going to like cut your scholarship in half. And like, to me, it's like as much as like in college, I'm like, I wish my parents would do more for me. It also helped me build character because like leaving college, I remember I had teammates that are like, how do I put a bill in my name? Or like, how do I do this? And I'm like, what? I'm like, you know, I've been paying for my own car since like freshman year of college. Like, what do you mean? So it's like little stuff like that makes you be like, thank God I had to learn not like the hard way, but like the hard way, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's personal responsibility, right? And that's all it really is that we're learning that at an earlier age. And like it's funny because like in those moments you kind of envy the people whose parents helped them out a bunch. And then down the line you're like, wow, they're actually kind of fucked. Because like it never really like ends out. Some people grow out of it, but a lot of times it takes a really long time and it's a lot of wasted time at the end of the day.
It's a lot of pushing them out the nest.
Yes.
Like in their like late 20s. It's like, I shouldn't have to push you out the nest. Like then parents kind of regret, like maybe I shouldn't have babied my child that much.
Yeah.
And trust me, I've witnessed that in relationships. I've witnessed that in friendships. I've witnessed that with teammates. I've witnessed like it's like, yeah, they were happy in the moment, but then the older they got, they're like, I wish I was more like Tamika, where I had to learn, a little sooner, because now I'm over here learning at like 28, 29 how to like build my credit because my parents babied me for teen years. And it's like, again, I hold nothing against parents that want to take care of their kids. Like any parent, if you have it, of course you're going to want to take care of your kid. But there comes a time where you need to put your foot down though. And it's like, I'm only here if you need me. If it's like you're going to go to, like, you might go to jail or something, or like something won't work out, but I can't hold your hand through adulthood completely.
Absolutely.
Because that affects your relationships at that point. Like if you want to get married, it's like, then it's like your significant other is like, well, you don't even know how to do this, or that, because you've never had to do this, or that,
Yeah, they don't have the life skills.
Yeah.
Fuck. It's funny because, like, that phrase, like, common sense, is it common? Like,
yeah.
This kind of rolls over to that, because all those basic life skills that, again, parents just did, because it was, but sometimes it comes down to, it's just easier for me to do it than explain it. And like,
yes.
I can't talk as an employer. I have done that. Instead of making an employee do something that's their job, just do it, because it was less effort for me just to do it than explain. And I don't know if parents just do that a lot too. But I know I do that as an employer, because like if it takes half the amount of time, I'll just do it. I'll do it.
That's me. It's like if I'll give someone, I've learned to have patience over time, because I used to not be a person with patience. But I attribute working in healthcare to why I'm so patient now. But
all people,
I give people the benefit of the doubt for a tad moment, and then if they just look like they can't get it, then I kind of step in, because it's like at some point it's like I let you try, but if you really can't accomplish it, then I guess I got to step in and kind of get push it through.
Absolutely, I love it. So Tamika, it was an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast today. I'm going to give you a moment for you to plug your business before we sign off, okay?
Okay. So my business is called Tamika T Collection. It's in my social media bio. So if you want my Instagram account, it's Tamika T Fit. So my first name and then letter T and then Fit. My wig business, the website's online as well. My business pertains to creating wigs for clients with alopecia and cancer. So I'm actually partnered with insurance companies all over the US, where I provide human hair wigs to clients with alopecia and cancer, or who are suffering from hair loss conditions. So there's a bigger cause behind my actual business and how I started it. But now I'm venturing into the bodybuilding world. So if this sounds like something you might want to try, some extensions or anything like that, or wig, go ahead and reach out. Give me a holler either on my personal account or my business account.
Love it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I had a blast.
I'm going to end the recording 1 second. Stop.